What if I told you that the future of our entire planet might just pivot on a single giant island of ice? Today, we're taking a deep dive into Greenland, what might be the most important and maybe the most misunderstood landmass on Earth. So let's start with that classic question, the one everyone thinks of. You look at a map, you see this enormous white blotch up north, and you just have to ask, why in the world is it called Greenland? Well, the answer is basically one of the oldest marketing tricks in the book. 1,000 years ago, the Viking explorer Eric the Red literally just made it up. He called it Greenland to try and convince people to move there from Iceland. And right there, that little fact tells you everything. What we think we know about this place is almost always just the tip of the iceberg. But see, Greenland's real story started way, way before the Vikings ever showed up. It's this incredible epic of human survival against odds that are just unimaginable. Long before any Europeans set foot there, Greenland was home to wave after wave of amazingly resilient people. We're talking about over 4,000 years of human history here, folks mastering this brutal, beautiful environment. From the early Sakakak and independence cultures to the Dorset, and then finally the Thule people, who are the direct ancestors of today's Inuit. And this is where it gets really fascinating. For a while, you had two completely different groups sharing the island. You had the European Norse, with their big long ships and their attempts at farming, and then you had the Thule people, with their kayaks and dog sleds. Well, by the 1450s, the climate got colder, and the Norse, they were gone. They just couldn't adapt. But the Thule, with their incredible Arctic technology, they thrived. It's such a powerful lesson. In a place like this, adaptation isn't just important, it's everything. And that same spirit of resilience brings us right to Greenland's modern story, this determined push for full independence. But like everything with Greenland, it's complicated. So what's the deal with Greenland's status right now? Well, officially, it's an autonomous territory inside the Kingdom of Denmark. In plain English, that means they run their own show for most things. Schools, healthcare, their own resources, but Denmark still handles the really big stuff, like defense and foreign policy. And here's the catch. This is the heart of the whole dilemma. About half of Greenland's entire public budget comes from what's called a block grant from Denmark. It's a massive economic lifeline, and it makes the dream of full independence really, really tricky. So it all boils down to this. For Greenland to achieve full sovereignty, it has to find a way to become economically independent. It has to replace that Danish money somehow. The big question is, how? And this, right here, is where the story suddenly goes global and gets incredibly dramatic. All of a sudden, it feels like the entire world is looking at Greenland. This remote, icy island has turned into a massive geopolitical chessboard. So why all this sudden interest? Well, it really comes down to three huge things. First, its strategic location for the military is more vital than ever. Second, it's sitting on vast, untapped reserves of minerals that the whole world needs. And third, new global shipping routes are literally melting into existence right at its doorstep. Okay, first up, defense. For decades, the US has had this super important base in the far north of Greenland, Thule Air Base. Think of it as the eyes and ears of North America, keeping watch over the entire Arctic. Then you've got the resources. As the ice melts, it's basically uncovering a geological treasure chest. We're talking about rare earth elements, the stuff you absolutely need for electric car batteries, for wind turbines, for all our green tech. For Greenland, this could be the golden ticket to economic independence. And finally, there's shipping. That legendary Northwest Passage, it's becoming a real possibility as a summer trade route. We're talking about shaving weeks off the trip between Asia and Europe, and that puts Greenland smack in the middle of a future global crossroads. But here's the thing. Every single one of these new factors, the minerals, the shipping lanes, all this global attention, it's all being driven by one massive world-changing force, climate change. And Greenland, well, it's ground zero. The numbers here are just staggering. Greenland is warming up nearly 4 times faster than the rest of the planet on average. It's not just on the front line of climate change, it is the front line. The sheer scale of the ice melt is almost impossible to wrap your head around. Every single year, Greenland is losing around 250 billion tons of ice. It's just a colossal amount. And to really understand what that means for all of us, if Greenland's entire ice sheet were to melt completely, global sea levels would rise by 7 meters. That's 23 feet. It would completely redraw the map of every single continent on this planet. And this brings us to this huge central paradox of modern Greenland. The very same crisis that's threatening the traditional Inuit way of life and putting coastal cities around the world at risk is also the very thing creating this potential economic jackpot. It's a crisis that exposes the minerals and opens the shipping routes that could finally buy the country its freedom. So that leaves us with this enormous, unavoidable question. As its ice continues to melt, is Greenland unlocking a golden future for itself, or is it unleashing a global catastrophe for the rest of us? The honest answer is we don't know yet. It's being written right now in the melting ice.